First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
Fairview's coffee has mysteriously gone missing. Mayhem ensues when strange, coffee-craving zombies plague the city. Detective Mickey Potatoes, an overworked public servant, uncovers why ordinary citizens are losing their minds and how to stop the coffee apocalypse. But it involves the mafia. And when you're dealing with mafia crime families, nothing is ever easy. The mafia controls everything in the city, including the police, including him. If he breaks the mafia, they will break him. So, the city is without coffee. The city is burning before his very eyes, but he's powerless. Detective Potatoes has the power to stop the coffee apocalypse, but if he does, he could lose everything.
I've done it. I've done that.
pose a riddle. What struck me loose but plays like a fiddle? One Saturday morning. Friday has an exit sign, but getting there still takes some time. What would make them feel real fine? One Saturday morning.
Oh, hello. Welcome, one and all, to another Saturday Morning Laundry Let's try that again. Welcome, one and all, to another Saturday Morning Laundry live stream with EB. That's me, Earth's Best Entertainment. Welcome, one and all. Thank you. I see someone watching tonight, this morning. Sorry, I'm so used to doing night shows. Even though I do this once a week on Saturday morning. It is one Saturday morning. That's right. Anybody who grew up in the 90s knows that intro so very well. That is 8 minutes of intros. I have to remember that for next week and start accordingly. That way it all ends right at 8 o'clock. So welcome one all. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really do appreciate it. Please, if you haven't already, get on over to my website. That is www.earthsbestentertainment.com. That is where you can find all my social media, all my videos to like and click upon and share and all that good stuff. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel at Earth's Best Entertainment, as well as my live stream channel, which is at Earth's Best Entertainment 2. Long story why I have two channels there. Monday through Thursday nights, I am at 8:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I do my daily videos with EB, and they are rebroadcasted at 8 a.m. right here on the Madness Network. So, hallelujah, I got through all that. So, hello. So, if you've never seen this portion of my show before, basically it's just me sitting in my car talking to the void. Sometimes people show up and watch. and me waiting for my laundry to be done. It was a very big load. Today because I didn't do laundry last week because of the blizzard of 23. And funny enough, 1 week ago we had mountains of snowbanks, and now it is practically all gone. So the love, I like to say that maybe there is some truth to this climate change thing, but what I also say is, if climate change means New Hampshire starts to behave like Florida, let's burn that CO2 and freaking change that climate, yo. Hashtag pro climate change. I'm going to put that up on the screen right now. Hashtag pro climate change. If that don't get me canceled, I don't know what will. So there it is right there. Hashtag pro climate change. Hello. I see two people watching. This is awesome. Or one person. And also, I can't see if you're watching on Facebook or Twitter or Twitch right now. I cannot see if you're watching. So if you're watching on those platforms, thank you so much. All it counts for me is YouTube. So I don't know if you're watching from other things, but I appreciate you coming on. Maybe I scared some people away with the pro climate change. So I'm gonna put this back on instead. So this week was a good week. I had some pretty awesome guests on. I had Chad Perkins on Thursday night. That was really cool. We had a really good conversation about lots of nonsense. We even talked about AI art a little bit, which I know AI art, a hot button topic for people in the comics community for sure. My stance on it is not necessarily pro or anti. I feel that it's a tool that can be used and can be helpful, but I don't believe in using it to completely create comics, or to call yourself an artist if you just use AI art. That's not what I'm about. For sure. So I agree with the the naysayers, so to speak, when it comes to that stuff. But I agree with the pro sayers, I guess the sayers, the yay sayers. There we go, the yay sayers. When it comes to, yeah, I mean, it's probably a helpful tool, you know, as the technology grows and gets better. I think it could probably do some pretty cool things. I like playing around with it and seeing what kind of horrifying things I can create with it. And there are some horrifying things you can create with it. Anytime you see teeth with that, with it in like a photo or something, it is terrifying. It is nightmare fuel. So maybe if you're like a Gothic writer, you could probably get some inspiration from some AI generated art. I can imagine like a modern day Edgar Allan Poe creating some horrific thing and then writing a poem about it or something. There I was in the cafe, and ready for my blind date. And she appeared. And she had beautiful blonde hair, a great hourglass figure. But when I looked at her face, it was the face of terror. Her teeth were sharp as knives. Her lips were disjointed, and her ears were pointed like an elf. But this was like no other elf. It was like a demonic elf. I don't know. I'm not a poet. That was just off the top of my head. Random babblings of a crazy man is what this is all about. Random babblings in my day. Yeah, I'm old enough to say in my day. That's kind of sad. It's kind of sad that people in my generation are getting old enough to be like, in my day. You know, we all have kids now. Excuse me while I spit out this gum. It's pretty scary. You know, I'm what they call a millennial. Which, by the way, millennials are not the weirdos in college right now, throwing around the pronouns. Okay, those are actually Gen Z. Let's not get us confused with Gen Z. Gen Z are in college right now. Millennials are starving and never buying a house. That's where we're at. We've got our families, we've got our jobs, some of us, and we're in apartments because we'll never own houses. That's where millennials are right now. Gen Z, they're in college and high school right now, and some maybe even middle school. Gen Z goes all the way down to born in like 2012. So some of the kids even growing up right now are Gen Z. Like my kids are kind of like on the cusp of like Gen Z and what they're gonna call Gen Alpha. So Gen Alpha is the generation after Gen Z. The kids who grew up with Wi-Fi tablets. my kids don't even know what cable is, right? Gen Z at least knows cable. I mean, they're Gen Z are the generation that don't know what life is like before the internet, but Gen Alpha will be the kids who don't know what life is like before Wi-Fi or before streaming, right? Because Gen Z still grew up with like DVDs and Blu-rays and watching TV. But my kids and my kids' generation, they're the ones that are growing up on their tablets and laptops and streaming YouTube and streaming Netflix and streaming a Disney Plus, all that stuff, right? They don't even know what like when my kids watch TV at my parents' house, they get annoyed from the commercials because they don't have commercials when they watch TV at my house, you know? So that's Gen Alpha. That's Gen Alpha. So let's remember that millennials are in their late 20s and their 30s and even their early 40s. Yes, that's right. If you're 40 years old right now, you're probably a millennial. So remember that, you know, maybe even 41. I don't know. It's generations don't really exist. So it's like depends on the sociologist who wrote the age range, right? You know, some things, if you Google like millennial generation, sometimes you'll see it say born 1986 until 2000. Other times it'll say 1982 to 1996. So it's just it's I don't know. It just depends, right? Like, but either way, you're you're a millennial if you were born somewhere in the 80s and even some of the 90s. And we're all in our hitting our middle age now. I hit my middle age this year, or 2022, I should say. I'm 36 years old. Can't believe it. Can't believe it, man. 36 years old. That's why I'm old enough to be like, in my day, you know. But there's a guy at work I work with who's exactly 30 years older than me. He was born in 57, and he's 66 right now. And so yeah, you know, um, it's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, I'll be 37 at the very end of the year, but it's like even though I was born in 86, like really I'm the age of someone born in 87 because you know, like I'm 36, they're all turning 36 this year, and I won't be 37 until December. You know, I'm a December baby. When you're a December baby, like you could barely claim that you were born the year you were born. because basically then comes January and you're not a year older than someone born in 87. You're a month older than someone born in 87. You know. Oh man. But life is crazy, man. Life is crazy, you know. um I'm really happy to be here though. I had a pretty fun week. um the the most momentous thing from this week was Thursday. It's crazy. Thursday I got out of work and I drove my kids to school like I always do. But instead of going home and sleeping, I went to the New Hampshire Park and Ride in Londonderry to meet my good friend Mark Zomer, who's a preacher. He's actually a preacher. Well, he's a preacher in a whole lot of things, but he likes to do this street evangelicalism. It's really a hard word to say. I don't like saying it. I don't like spelling it either. It's hard to spell. And I don't even know if it's a word because the autocorrect will always be like, "What are you trying to say?" So I don't even know if it's a word, but he likes to go to the subway and preach and hand out little leaflets um, about Jesus. And I won't get short-winded about Jesus today, but um, I got a little taste of preaching on Thursday because we're there at the subway. We're taking turns preaching. It was him and a few other guys and me, of course. And one of the guys was like, "Hey, you're gonna preach?" And I'm like, "I'm certainly thinking about it. I'm trying to formulate in my head what I'm gonna say." Um, he's like, "Well, got a few more minutes left before the next train." And I'm like, all right. Praise Jesus. I'm just gonna do it, right? And I got off to kind of a bumpy start. I started and then I kind of like had to stop and think for a few seconds. But then I got going and then I got going and I went on for a good like 2 minutes. Problem is I was supposed to go for 4. So Mark came in and kind of was like, "Hey, what my brother here did was hey, 3 people watching. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's really awesome." So I put that video up on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook of me doing my little Jesus speech. So praise Jesus, you know. But like I said, I'm not going to get short-winded about Jesus here. Um, I will, however, on my own show do it sometimes. But um, here live right now on all these different platforms, I won't do it. I won't do it. I won't bore you with my Jesus love. um, Speaking of things I love, oh yeah, You probably can't see it too well, but this is a book signed by both Steve Levine, or actually all three, Steve Levine, Jim Lawson, and Kevin Eastman. All three of those guys were in the same place at the same time in September in my home state of New Hampshire, Granite State Comic Con, and they signed my Turtles book. I've had this Turtles book for almost 10 years, actually. I bought it at a place called Bull Moose, because they had taken over. No, this is before they took over a bookstore, actually. But but I bought that book 2014, never knowing I was ever gonna meet Kevin Eastman, right? And so yeah, so if you could see the turtle, if you could see the turtles, that turtle right there is drawn by Kevin Eastman, and this one here, Steve Levine. And actually, this cover is done by Steve Levine. And this book doesn't credit him, but Jim Lawson inked this book. So they don't credit him for some weird reason. So I would have never known that Jim Lawson was a part of this book. So it's really cool to have. And his signature got a little bit rubbed off. My sweaty fingers were holding it like this. Where my thumb is where his signature is. You could barely see it, but he did sign it. So that's really cool. It's really cool. They say don't meet your heroes, but I had a good experience meeting those guys. So that's kind of some of my inspiration to do comics myself. And as we all know, I do Earth's Best Friends, which is why I call my company Earth's Best Entertainment, to just kind of go with Earth's Best Friends. And also, not only that, but coming April 17th is the Earth's Best Kickstarter. Yes, I got this domain name. Isn't that the best domain name you've ever seen? Earth's Best Kickstarter.com. April 17th, I'm launching book 4 of Earth's Best Friends. So check that out if you can. You can sign up right now for the email notification. I believe you can also give me feedback on how the campaign looks. So please give me feedback, because I'm dying for feedback just on anything, really. You can also go to earthsbestentertainment.com. It's scrolling across your screen right now. That is where you'll find pretty much all information about my show, my YouTube channel, everything, as well as where you can purchase copies of Earth's Best Friends. Right now, because of the cost of printing, I've actually started off as doing graphic novels. I had Earth's Best Friends Volume 1 release back in July, and that was for my previous Kickstarter as well. But because of the cost of print, I've actually decided to split it up into floppies. So you could actually purchase your copy of Earth's Best Friends, which is now Hyper Feeling Ninja Heroes, Animal Teens, and Tween Titans. Basically, I'm releasing one per month from each chapter of Earth's Best Friends Volume 1. But if you want to get a better deal, when the Earth's Best Kickstarter is live, I actually have tiers that are called the catch-up tiers. So you could actually, for a much better price, I believe it's $20 for the Volume 1. So I retired the Volume 1, but I'm actually going to bring it back for this Kickstarter. So this is going to be an exclusive book on my Kickstarter. So you won't be able to get Volume 1 anywhere else besides through me personally. Like if I'm at a con or something, I still have a few copies of Earth's Best Friends Volume 1 on hand. But basically, the only way you're going to be able to get Earth's Best Friend Volume 1 is from this Kickstarter, as well as Book 4, of course, because, again, once the Kickstarter is over, I'm going to be splitting Book 4 into floppy chapters as well. So you'll have to go to my website and purchase each individual floppy for about $7-8 each plus shipping, or you can go to the Kickstarter and purchase the entire book 4. So that's pretty exciting. I'm really excited about it. I can't wait to start doing my rounds on stream channels and stuff as well, which I probably have to start booking now, because I mean, April 17th is just around the corner, man. We've got about a month to go. So and it's going to be a 30-day campaign on Kickstarter. Well, actually, I say Kickstarter, but I'm actually probably going to actually be on Fund My Comic, because I want to be a guinea pig for Luke, and see what kind of success that crowdfunding campaign platform can bring me. But right now, I have the Kickstarter made. I haven't made the Fund My Comic yet. But once I make that Fund My Comic, earthsbestkickstarter.com is going to link to my Fund My Comic campaign instead of the Kickstarter. So it's going to probably be, still be a $750 campaign. I really just need the money to keep on paying my artists throughout the year. And because I mostly fund this by myself with my own money. So it's great to have the support, and that's why I offer different kinds of books and stuff on these Kickstarter campaigns. Hey, Geek Hero, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Yeah, thumbs up, excellent. I appreciate that. I love it when folks comment and chat with me. So so you see me chewing this gum, right? So I'm someone who's a little nervous and anxious, right? I've got ADHD brain as well. So strangely enough, in 2018, I did some research on nicotine, and turns out that there was actually this study from Harvard University, a legitimate study from Harvard University, that actually nicotine can help the symptoms of ADHD. As well as anxiety and even schizophrenia, bipolar. Nicotine can be a helpful thing. Glad to be here. I've been stream hopping since 5 p.m. yesterday. Oh man, that's awesome. That's awesome. I appreciate you coming by. You know, so yeah, hail, as they say. But so the nicotine, right, actually does help calm me down and kind of keep me a little focused. I mean, it's certainly no replacement for real ADHD medication. Like, you know, if you have to take Concerta or whatever, I mean, you know, don't think that nicotine is a good replacement. But in a pinch, you know, nicotine can certainly help you relax a little bit, you know. And I don't condone smoking, okay? I don't condone smoking. But nicotine gum is a safe alternative to smoking, or vaping for that matter. I don't condone either of those things. But the gum is perfectly safe. It's sugarless. So I mean, it's not gonna hurt your teeth either. It might hurt your jaw after a while. If you chew a lot of gum, your jaw does start to hurt. But it it calms me down. It allows me to try to focus my energy a little bit. Oh, there we go. It's really weird to watch someone going all day long. So I'm gonna put it to the side of my mouth so that we're not being rude here. But it was actually in how I came to this idea, right? Because I was thinking about it. I was like, all right, so the idea behind Concerta or methylphenidate, right? Basically, it's a form of methamphetamine or amphetamine, right? Amphetamine is a stimulant that that makes you like have a lot of energy. You know, that's what a stimulant does. It gives you energy. You know, and that's why crystal meth usually makes people go crazy, right? But the idea behind Concerta, Adderall, Ritalin, right, is that if you have ADHD, what these drugs do is actually have an opposite effect. Folks who don't have ADHD will take these stimulants and be able to stay up all night long. Usually college kids abuse it to cram for exams and do a whole lot of yes, exactly. It's called speed for a reason. Exactly. But the reason with ADHD is it actually has an opposite effect, and it actually calms you down when you're already like, going a mile a minute in your head, because that's what ADHD is. It's when you process input too fast, and it makes you unable to focus because you're just like, whoa, you're distracted. You're like, whoa, all these things, right? You're already kind of like naturally on speed. So when you take speed, it actually slows you down. It's weird. It's weird how the brain works. It's fascinating how chemistry works, especially brain chemistry. It's kind of a fascination for me. So I came into this, I was like, like, has anyone ever thought about nicotine in that way? Like, obviously caffeine is a stimulant as well. But caffeine is bad for people with ADHD. So in 2018, when I read about this study about nicotine, I decided to do an experiment. So what I did was, one day I took nothing. I just did my normal routine, which did involve a large caffeinated soda. All right. But that was my normal day. And I wrote down every single time I had like a fidgety moment or something, right? So after that, right, when I wrote everything down, I kind of looked at it, I'm like, wow, right? So then because that was what you call the control, right? When you do experiments, you need a control. And so that way, when you take the drugs, you can compare the effects of the drugs versus the effects of not on drugs at all, right? So then I chewed the nicotine gum the next day, but I still drank that caffeinated soda because that's part of my normal routine. So it was a caffeinated soda plus the nicotine gum. And I mean, the difference in me was night and day, and my coworkers were like, dude, you are so calm right now. Like, I'm usually used to you like banging on the table and shaking your leg and singing random songs and just blurting things out, right? And they're like, wow, this is crazy how different you are, right? And that was the nicotine gum that did that for me, right? So then the next day I compared, I did the best I could in converting how many milligrams of nicotine I did compared to caffeine. So I bought some caffeine pills, and I think I took like 2.5. It's like X amount of nicotine equals X amount of caffeine. You have to do like math. You have to do some kind of conversion. I don't remember exactly what the math was, but basically I took close to an equivalent, as close as I could get, right? Because it takes a lot more milligrams of caffeine to do what a couple milligrams of nicotine does. Hey, Bunny, glad to have you around, man. Thank you for tuning in. I appreciate it. I'm just talking about when I did my experiment on nicotine versus caffeine versus my normal day. So when I took those caffeine pills plus my caffeinated soda, because again, that's part of my daily routine, that was the worst day of them all. The caffeine only agitated my ADHD worse, right? So it's really weird that caffeine and nicotine are both stimulants, right? But caffeine does not do for ADHD what these other stimulants do. I don't know what the difference is. I'm not a pharmacist. I'm not a chemist. So I can't explain why there's a huge difference there when they're both considered stimulants, right? All I know is that caffeine was no good for me. The caffeine pills were no good for me in this experiment. So I started chewing nicotine gum to alleviate those symptoms of ADHD, of anxiety. I mean, I don't know for sure if I even have ADHD per se, because they say in adults it's hard to kind of diagnose. Usually you have to be diagnosed as a kid with ADHD, because usually kids don't have anxiety. So with adults, a lot of times anxiety kind of builds over the years. So it's really hard to say, well, is that the symptom of anxiety or is that the symptom of ADHD? Because they're both pretty much the same. So, and I was never officially diagnosed as a kid. Like, they experimented with me in Ritalin, but my parents put a stop to that. They didn't like the effects of the Ritalin. But the Ritalin, all right, when I was 12 years old, put me to sleep, which proves that I probably did or do have ADHD. Because when those stimulants have an opposite effect on you, i.e. putting you to sleep, a stimulant like speed, as we talked about, as Geek Hero said, right? When speed puts you to sleep, you probably have ADHD. So it's really interesting that happened to me in my experiments there, you know? And so, yeah, it's cool. Wow, I got 4 people watching. This is awesome, guys. Thank you for tuning in. I really appreciate it. I love being part of this madness network. This is awesome to see more eyes on my show and my stuff. So I appreciate it, guys. This is great. You know, hopefully I'm being entertaining enough for you guys. It's like, here I am just babbling on about nicotine. So fast forward to now, like, yeah, oh yeah. Yeah, yeah. You know, I actually believe that it probably runs on my dad's side. I actually kind of believe that my dad probably has either ADD or ADHD, because he will jump from like creative project to creative project. My dad is so creatively inclined, but he's not creative in the sense where he could like write a book or a comic book like I am. He's creative, like he can draw, he could paint. There was a time where he was building wooden toys. He was making these really exquisite wooden toys. Like, these would be toys that you'd buy from a catalog for like hundreds of dollars, man. That was the quality of these toys. Oh, they used to call it hyper. Ritalin creates brainless zombies when they get to adulthood, hence millennials. I mean, yes, so there was quite an overabundance of diagnoses of ADHD, right? Any kid who didn't pay attention in school, they called ADHD. And yeah, I mean, my generation, millennials, yeah, absolutely. But there is truth to the disorder. There is truth to it. There are people that actually have this problem, and the medication does actually help them. But you're right, with the rest of the people that actually don't have it and are taking these drugs, it does affect them negatively. Absolutely. You know, it's been very overdiagnosed, to the point where a lot of kids in my generation, you know, were wrongfully diagnosed with it and wrongfully put on this medication, which I mean, I kind of feel like may have contributed to the heroin epidemic we have right now, because a lot of kids that I graduated with, a lot of them have died from heroin overdose. And I mean, not all of them, you know, were put on Ritalin as kids, but I kind of feel like it's a contributor for sure, you know, because I mean, Ritalin, Adderall, Concerta, all that stuff is like related to methamphetamine, which is a hard drug. It is a terrible drug. And you know, so if you're wrongfully put on these medications, it can have very negative effects or overdiagnosed and put on the wrong types of dosages. Right. And getting the dosage correct is very important, which they were not, the doctors were just really quick to put these kids on these medications and kind of experiment with them. I mean, it's like my generation kind of had to suffer for the future, because now the doctors are well informed about what dosages should be utilized. And so now it's a lot safer for a kid to be diagnosed, because it's not overdiagnosed anymore. And the dosages, they have so much data about where the dosages should be for what problems and stuff. And so it's almost like my generation was a guinea pig for that. But now it's a lot more controlled and a lot safer for people to be put on these medications who need that help. But I kind of feel like, with the nicotine, like, I don't really want to be put on this harder drug, because what I'm afraid of is if I were to be put on Adderall or something, right? I'm afraid that it will mellow me out to the point where my creativity goes away, because I feel like part of my creativity is because of my ADHD brain. The nicotine doesn't affect it, but it's also so much more mild than like an amphetamine would be, that the nicotine just takes the edge off. It doesn't completely zombify me like Ritalin probably would do, or Adderall, one of those drugs. Amphetamine salts is what they're officially called, or the generic is called, methylphenidine or amphetamine salts, or so yeah, absolutely. They were overdiagnosed in the 90s and early 2000s for sure. And it's really sad, because some kids' lives have been ruined because of it. Some adults are trying to function, and they're functioning. They're having a lack of function because of it, because they get taken off these drugs when they're adults, and then it's like, I can't function now, And I think that's what kind of attributes the drug abuse, and yeah, so it's really sad. But at the same time, there are kids that really did need it, that are functioning adults now, or kids like me whose parents didn't want to go down that road, and I probably could have been on that, and it probably could have helped me a lot when I was in school, but now I don't know if it's ADHD or if it's just anxiety, because like all adults, I have my baggage, and I've seen some things, and of course that causes anxiety to build in you just naturally. And I mean, so the nicotine does help focus me a little bit and calm me down. But again, I don't condone smoking or vaping. But I do say that if you feel like you have been ADHD, or if you have anxiety, I would say give nicotine a try. You do have to be careful, because nicotine is very potent versus caffeine, where caffeine, you probably have to have a lot of it before you're like, right? But nicotine, you don't have to have too much before you've kind of overdosed, so to speak. Yeah, overdosed, so to speak. Overdose doesn't always mean it's going to kill you, but what it means is it's going to have a lot of negative effects. And I have overdosed with my experiments with nicotine, because what happens is, when you don't know how much you should have, you should always try to start at the lowest dose possible if you do want to go down that road. I found out the hard way that you should not use the patch. You should definitely not use the patch. All right, the gum has a maximum of 4 milligrams, and when you eat, all right, it gets into your bloodstream slower. I mean, chewing gum is not really eating; you're not swallowing it. If you swallow the nicotine gum, you're probably going to get very sick. But just like digesting the juices with the nicotine, that's going to get into your bloodstream a lot slower than if you put it on your skin, and your skin is just purely absorbing it right into your bloodstream. I've used the patch a couple times. I used to cut it into like fourths and use just a fourth of a patch. But over time, you do build like a tolerance. My problem is when I felt that I built a tolerance, I went too high with the patch, and I went from like a quarter of a patch to like half a patch, and that didn't do well for me. I felt nauseous. I felt like my heart rate was rising. I felt like my blood pressure was rising. Um, and once I took the patch off, I immediately felt better. Um, so, but I've never felt that way from chewing the nicotine gum, because it's a lot slower of a dose hitting your bloodstream, and it's a lot lower of a dose. I mean, the patches are a minimum of like uh, I want to say they're a minimum of 10 milligrams. So that's a lot more than 4, you know. So, and you're probably not going to get a full 4 milligrams from chewing the gum either. You probably have to chew it for a very long time. Um, you know, so that's the key is trying to find the right dosage. And because they don't generally use nicotine for that sort of thing, you have to experiment with yourself. And it's funny because when I first started this, people were like, oh my God, you're gonna end up smoking, you're gonna get sick, this is stupid, nicotine is terrible, it's poison. But all the research I did actually shows that nicotine is no more poisonous. I mean, yes, all drugs are poison. All right, let's remember, all drugs and medications are poison. But some poisons have effects that help us, right? You know, and nicotine's no exception to that rule. You know, like I compare it to caffeine all the time. Nicotine is no worse for you than caffeine. And if you use the right amount, it can help you. You don't want to overdose. Of course, you don't want to overdose. Overdose on caffeine is terrible too. It really makes your heart, pound. And nicotine can do that too. And it's a lot less of nicotine can do that to you faster. So you have to be careful, definitely. Drugs are drugs. Poison is poison. But but really? Is my time up already? Wow. I guess my laundry's done. Holy mackerel. Really? Wow. That was an hour and 10 already. Wow. Well, I guess my laundry is done, guys. Well, I'll finish the thought and then I'll wrap it up, I guess, because this is good. This is good conversation we're having, So, you do have to be careful, but the smoking is what is really bad for you. The smoking or the vaping, when you take the nicotine out of that form of using it, it's not any more dangerous than a cup of coffee, and you don't want to drink too much coffee, but you can drink coffee without hurting yourself, and the same thing with nicotine. You could chew nicotine gum without hurting yourself. And I truly believe that, and it's truly helped my life out. I probably wouldn't have been able to get out in the subway and do that preaching without the help of the nicotine calming me down from my anxiety of talking to people and just putting myself out there, and even though it's not a miracle drug or anything. I mean, it doesn't make me so sociable and so full of charisma that I'm completely cured of it. But no, it takes the edge off. It takes that hesitation away, so if you're thinking about, having anxiety and you haven't talked to a doctor, always talk to a doctor. All right. I talked to my doctor, and this is what he told me. He said, you know what? I 100% understand why the nicotine is helping you. All right. Just like, and it's probably going to help you just as much as any drug that I could prescribe to you. He said it's probably cheaper too. So as long as you don't start smoking, I'm okay with this. So this is from my doctor, you know. So I did seek medical advice on this, you know, and I was told that as long as I don't smoke and as long as, you know, I obviously don't overdose on it, right? That it's fine. And so that's from the mouth of a doctor himself. And so all the naysayers that were like, oh my God. And I'm like, well, you know what? I'm gonna talk to my doctor. I'm gonna let you know what he says. And then that was what he said. And so it's been a wild ride. I did stop chewing it for a while. But then I started again, especially around the time I became a steward and the stress started coming in more from it. So it takes the edge off from the stress and the anxiety. So that's my spiel today. I guess I'm gonna wrap it up now because I guess my laundry is done. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate it. This has been an awesome time talking to you guys. Check me out, like I said before, scrolling across your screen, www.earthbessentertainment.com. That's where you can find all my stuff. I have 2 YouTube channels. One is where I do videos called Comics Explained, and that basically just explains episodes of my book Earth's Best Friends, as well as other random videos that I put on it from time to time. You could also see the short of me doing that preaching for a minute and a half in the subway the other day. I have that on my channel as well. And my second channel is all my live streams, Earth's Best Entertainment 2. So check those out if you get a chance. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in, guys. Thanks for coming in on the chat. Bunny, Geek Hero Bubba. Guys, thank you so much for all your support and all the things coming on. And I will catch you next time. Bye-bye now.